In the bitter cold of the Ural Mountains, where the unforgiving winds whisper tales of tragedy and despair, the story of the Dyatlov Pass incident has haunted the minds of those who dare to venture into its depths. It was a tale that began with hope and excitement as 9 experienced hikers led by the charismatic Igor Dyatlov embarked on a journey that promised to test their limits and forge unbreakable bonds of friendship. But little did they know that their adventure would soon descend into a nightmare beyond their wildest imaginations. As the hikers set out on their trek, the landscape around them seemed to come alive with an eerie presence. The towering pines creaked and groaned in the wind, their branches reaching out like gnarled fingers grasping at the hikers' clothing. The snow beneath their feet crunched with each step, a constant reminder of the unforgiving nature of the wilderness they had chosen to explore. At first, the journey seemed to be going according to plan. The hikers made good progress, their spirits high as they navigated the rugged terrain and set up camp each night. But as they pushed deeper into the mountains, a sense of unease began to creep over the group. It was a feeling that they couldn't quite shake, a nagging sensation that they were being watched by unseen eyes. As the days turned into nights, the hikers huddled around their campfires, their faces flickering in the orange glow of the flames. They told stories to pass the time, their laughter echoing through the stillness of the forest. But even in those moments of camaraderie, there was an underlying tension that seemed to grow with each passing hour. It wasn't until the night of February 1st that the true horror of their situation began to reveal itself. As the hikers settled into their tents, a strange and unsettling sound pierced the darkness. It was a sound that none of them had ever heard before, a guttural growl that seemed to come from the very depths of the earth itself. The hikers emerged from their tents, their eyes wide with fear as they scanned the surrounding forest for any sign of the source of the noise. But there was nothing to be seen, only the inky blackness of the night and the eerie stillness of the mountains. As the hours ticked by, the strange noises continued, growing louder and more frequent with each passing minute. The hikers began to feel a sense of dread that they couldn't quite explain, a feeling that something was watching them from the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And then, without warning, all hell broke loose. The hikers found themselves under attack from an unseen force, their screams piercing the night air as they tried desperately to defend themselves. Some of them were thrown against the jagged rocks with bone-shattering force, their bodies twisted and broken in unnatural positions. Others were dragged away into the darkness, their fate unknown, their screams fading into the distance. When the sun finally rose the next morning, the full extent of the horror was revealed. The campsite was in shambles, with tents ripped to shreds and equipment scattered across the blood-stained snow. And of the 9 hikers who had set out on the journey, only a few remained, their eyes wide with terror and their minds shattered by the unspeakable horrors they had witnessed. In the days and weeks that followed, search parties were dispatched to try and locate the missing hikers. But as they combed the mountains, they were met with a scene of unimaginable carnage. Bodies were found scattered across the landscape, some with inexplicable injuries that defied explanation. Eyes were missing, tongues were ripped out, and bones were crushed as if by some immense force. The investigation into the incident was fraught with inconsistencies and unanswered questions. Despite the best efforts of the authorities, no clear explanation for the deaths of the hikers could be found. Theories ranging from secret military experiments to encounters with otherworldly beings were put forth, but none could fully account for the sheer brutality and inexplicable nature of the injuries sustained by the victims. As the years passed, the story of the Dyatlov Pass incident began to take on a life of its own. It became a cautionary tale, whispered around campfires and passed down from generation to generation. Those who dared to venture into the mountains did so with a sense of trepidation, knowing that they were treading on hallowed ground where the very fabric of reality seemed to blur and twist. For the families of the hikers, the tragedy was a wound that would never fully heal. They were left with nothing but unanswered questions and a gaping hole in their lives where their loved ones had once been. The weight of the mystery hung heavy on their shoulders, a burden that they would carry with them for the rest of their days. And so, the legend of the Dyatlov Pass incident continues to haunt us, a reminder of the terrifying mysteries that lurk just beyond the edges of our understanding. It is a story that speaks to the primal fear that lurks within us all, the fear of the unknown and the unknowable. As you sit here now, listening to this tale, you may feel a chill run down your spine. You may find yourself glancing over your shoulder, half expecting to see a pair of glowing eyes staring back at you from the shadows. And you may wonder, in the darkest recesses of your mind, what really happened to those 9 hikers on that fateful night in the Ural Mountains. But be warned, for some questions are best left unanswered. Some mysteries are too terrible to be solved, too horrifying to be faced head-on, and sometimes the only way to survive the horrors that lurk in the darkness is to turn away and never look back. So if you find yourself tempted to follow in the footsteps of those ill-fated hikers, to venture into the mountains in search of answers, remember this: the price of knowledge is often higher than we are willing to pay. And in the case of the Dyatlov Pass incident, that price may be your very soul.